Guys, welcome to an all-new edition of Boxing 411 with our very special guest, boxing scribe Rodney Green. I tell you what, before we introduce the star of the program, we have to remind everyone that this show is brought to you by FightSaga.com, as well as in Rod We Trust, eXp Realty. God bless you guys. I tell you what, though, we have so much to cover in such a short amount of time. Let's get right to it. Guys, this wouldn't be an episode of Boxing 411 without the visitation of our good friend, Mr. Rodney Green. Rodney, how are you doing tonight, brother?
Yes, sir. Feeling so very, very well. Man, it's September. So
September 1st.
We got hopes of a little bit of some cool weather coming, possibly. Maybe not, but nevertheless, man, excited to be back. And we're going to talk about some boxing tonight.
Excellent, brother. Good to see you in a good mood, man. I tell you what, interesting things, and it's funny. As I'm perusing through the internet, right, just looking at information, preparing for the show, right, a very dear friend of mine tells me that Canelo and DAZN are miles apart and are more than likely headed to court. This is going to be settled by an arbitrator or a judge, right? That they're so far apart that it's seemingly that court is inevitable, right? And as I'm doing that, as I'm getting this message, I look on DAZN News for any update, and it says Eddie Hearn hopeful that Canelo Alvarez versus Gennady Golovkin trilogy fight will happen in Cinco de Mayo 2021. I'm like, wow. Rodney, your thoughts on this, man? Because, and obviously the last time we had a show, we were talking about potentially him fighting that knucklehead that got knocked out by, and I'm sorry I say knucklehead, his name isn't something that rolls off the tongue, right? The gentleman from Turkey who got knocked out by Chris Eubank Jr. The last time we had a program, it was Avni Yildirim. That's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yildirim? Jingo.
Yildirim. Yeah.
What'd you say, Gesundheit? No, but, and so obviously DAZN wasn't interested in that. You called that one perfectly, Rodney. You said, no, I don't like it, and I don't think DAZN is going to be interested in it. I was trying to look on the bright side, but your thoughts on this, man, why DAZN isn't willing to budge? Neither is Canelo.
Well, here's the thing. Anytime you sign a fighter of Canelo's magnitude and give him that type of, contract, what was it, a $360 million contract, Joseph?
Yep, for 11 fights. Yes, sir.
For 11 fights. Okay. I would say out of he's fought how many times with the zone? Like 4? Is it 4 or 5?
3. He's fought 3 times. Okay. He fought Rocky Fielding, and that was a gimme. That was his first layup. And then he fought Daniel Jacobs, and then Sergey Kovalev. And that's been it.
That's been it. So, again, when you're signing to somebody with that type of, dollar amount, it's a huge business risk. It's a huge business decision. I thought DAZN probably looked at it that Canelo would be more inclined because you're getting a hell of a payday would maybe fight some stiffer competition. Maybe throw in a Triple G in that type of, mix. Maybe throw in a Andrade. It's a host of other fights. Maybe a Billy Joe Saunders. But nevertheless, though, I would see DAZN being a little bit more favorable if it was one of those counterparts he would be facing. But this guy right here, I don't think it's enough public demand, as we spoke last time. Even if Canelo was to win in dramatic fashion, I don't think it would do anything for them as a business model, DAZN, to where it would really elevate them. And I don't think it would really do too much for Canelo because he's supposed to win. So I just think DAZN has come to and Golden Boy has come into a fork in the road. DAZN wants something. Golden Boy and Canelo, they don't want to concede, and we're at a standoff. But if it was me and I'm looking on the outside in, I would favor somewhat with the zone because they're paying you. They're paying you a hefty payday, and they're meeting their obligation. So who you face, I think you should be willing to work with them a little bit more, in my humble opinion.
Well, yeah, you're a businessman, and Rodney, and negotiation is everything. It's like you should always be willing to work with your benefactor. This is so silly. This is the entire reason why DAZN went out and signed Danny Jacobs, why they went out and signed Demetrius Andrade.
Yep.
Yeah, why they signed Billy Joe Saunders, why they signed John Ryder, why they signed Callum Smith. They're looking to fill up that schedule with quality opponents. So these are the two things that they're running into. And once again, this is the problem when you have promoters basically in charge of the calendar. And you've got a guy like Eddie Hearn that understands and knows that they've been given a $5 million allotment to find Canelo's opponents. And what happens when his guy gets the offer? Oh, no. Sorry, mate. We want closer to $12 million. We want closer to $10 million. Well, wait a minute, dude. You already know that they're only given $5 million per opponent.
Yep.
Right? That's what they're given. No. We look, this isn't the era of inflated purses, right? And it's like, dude, this is what happens. You get these promoters putting their fighters and their best interests before the networks. The same thing is happening to Showtime. And all the while, Steven Espinoza is getting reamed. He's getting shafted. And the same thing is happening over here on DAZN. Eddie Hearn making the stupid decision to give Mikey Garcia $7 million to fight Jesse Vargas.
Ridiculous.
Signing Gennady Golovkin to $12 million per fight. They're basically throwing money out the window and not seeing any return on their investment. Then you've got Gennady Golovkin fighting Zarameta, supposedly being negotiated for November. It's like, when are these guys going to start realizing that if there's no demand, where do they think the money is going to come from?
Absolutely. And, the more and more we have these lackluster events or fights that the fans really are not craving for, it just continues to put a black eye on boxing, in my opinion. Because, the caliber of competition is out there. As I said, when DAZN decided to sign Canelo, he was the focal point, and they wanted to put all these pieces around him, And in their mind was, you know what? We're going to create a frenzy, and each time Canelo fights, he wins. Each time the other top contenders fight, like Andrade, Billy Joe Saunders, Smith, it could always lead, and roads will end up going back to Canelo. Well, see, that hasn't happened. So now you have a lot of guys that's on the shelf and saying, okay, where do I go and where do I fight next? But, Canelo still is the centerpiece of your business plan and your operation. But at the same time, they're not making a profit or a profit like they should have been making, I believe. And Eddie Hearn's a smart guy. He's been around the sport a long time. This is not his first rodeo. So he can forecast and see, if we don't stop this or mitigate it right now, we're going to only dig ourselves into a bigger hole. So it's going to be interesting with this standoff. It really is, though. It's going to be really interesting to see who budges. And once it's resolved, where do each entity goes from here? And I'm very curious to see how it pans out.
Yeah, indeed. This is, to be honest with you, this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well, man, for Canelo. Once again, it's like why wouldn't you choose to work with your benefactor? In other words, why bite the hand that feeds you?
Definitely is. You would hope.
I mean,
you would hope
it's not good for business, man.
No, it's not. It's not good for business, and you would hope someone would pull them by the coattail and say, "Look, man, let's have a different perspective." But it's going to get interesting now, and the reason why I say that, a lot of the COVID regulations and restrictions are kind of starting to loosen up. So we're starting to get more stadium events. So I foresee a lot of these guys fighting in the future. They'll be able to, go inside, the arenas and fight. It will be very interesting, though, to see who's going to be their competition, who's going to be their counterpart. And as I said in the last week's show, or the week before last, it's not helping that UFC continues to put on stellar event after stellar event.
Yeah, and you look at Fox, right? Pete, right, for Lara versus Vendetti last Saturday night, right? Fox, it was just reported by Nielsen. Fox peaked at 1 million.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. The last UFC event had more than that, and it was $65. More people paid for it than tuned into the last PBC event on Fox for free. What does that tell you, brother?
Man, that speaks volumes. That speaks volumes about the demand of the product. So, as I said, numbers don't lie, and someone needs to take a hard look at these numbers and realize that we're all in this business alignment together. And, instead of finger pointing, we need to deal with the current state of affairs. And the best way to do that is by putting on the best, fighting the best. And I think that would tend to tilt the, odds back into boxing favor. Until then, man, we're going nowhere fast, which is evident, by some of the ratings. Yeah, the house is on fire, so to speak. And you're right. Thank goodness, though. You're right, man. They are starting to actually pull back these restrictions, which is why it was just announced December 12th at the O2 Arena. Kubrat Pulev is going to challenge Anthony Joshua for his IBF title, right? That was just announced yesterday. And basically the British authorities, and they have a much better situation than the U.S. currently, right? Starting in October, they're aiming to allow at least 25% capacity at these venues. Now, Rodney, if you thought tickets were expensive back then, how much do you think tickets are going to be for 25% capacity, brother? Yeah, it's going to be very steep, very, very steep. As I said, but I think they're holding it in a place where boxing fans are diehard and they will support. I only can hope that they will put on a good show. But I think from a style matchup, it's possible that, you could see fireworks with Joshua, in this fight. But, we'll see. But as I said, they may have to take a small loss just from the gate and not being able to use it to its capacity. But if it can be an exciting fight and restrictions continue to loosen up, then that'll be a good move going forward for not just, Anthony Joshua and Eddie Herron, but I think all of boxing. It'll kind of maybe be a shot in the arm because, like I say, boxing was already kind of having its issues, and like I say, COVID-19 didn't help at all. So, again, if we can kind of loosen that up and get a good fight, be out in a arena that's going to be, energetic and people can get their money's worth or somewhat of their money's worth, I think it would bode well for the sport.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we need the heavyweights now more than ever. Everyone else is acting like a bunch of prima donnas. You look at all of the big events that had mainstream audiences talking, right? Earlier this year, we saw a fantastic event which delivered in a very resounding manner, which was Fury versus Wilder 2, right? And then you look at the event that we just saw, which you nailed right on the money on August 22nd, Povetkin knocking out Dillian White in the fifth round. Everyone is still talking about that sensational knockout. So yes, we need the heavyweights now more than ever. I mean, and then if you think about it, the only other big mainstream topic this year, right, has been the comeback of Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. So when you think about it, the only three big-time topics that have received mainstream exposure have been by the heavyweights. They've been virtually carrying the sport. And you're right, Rodney. It's a very good point. Boxing is a symbiont business. Okay, one doesn't work without the other. The promoters need the fighters. The promoters need the networks. And everyone needs the real bosses of the sport to tune in, which are the fans. And that's another thing, man. Why are fans, okay, always the last ones to receive the memo that they're the real bosses of the sport? That the sport ceases to exist if they don't financially support it? Right? Because I guarantee you most of the people who listen to this program do not financially support these shows. They don't buy a ticket. They don't throw down they don't see those events on their cable bill. They choose to illegally stream it. It's like, dude, boxing diehards are the absolute worst. Well, guys, if you enjoy your beloved boxing, yeah, you'd better start tuning into these things. Try to tune in as much as possible on traceable, right? Traceable apps. Purchase the app, guys. Purchase the events. Like, we've got a really big one, a great one coming up on September 26th, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later because they just did the kickoff promotion. They just kicked off their promotion for the event, and we're talking about the two Charlo brothers, right? So, yeah, guys, I appreciate that a lot of people are hurting right now, right? But come on now. Come on. You've got to support your beloved boxing or else it won't be here. It won't be as readily as accessible as it has been in the past. But your final thoughts on Canelo, Rodney. What do we expect to see? Do we expect to see him in 2020, or no? We should just immediately throw that out the window.
I would, if I'm a betting man, I would throw 2020 out the window, and let me tell you why. Okay, Canelo didn't have the greatest relationship with Golden Boy prior to this fallout. You combine Eddie Hearn's not happy. Okay, then the pre-existing issues he had with Golden Boy, and this false sense of entitlement that Canelo seems to carry around. I don't believe we'll see him in 2020. I really don't. And let me just say this in closing. See, when you want to become a global superstar, you know, like a Floyd Mayweather, like a Muhammad Ali, or some of the great fighters, man, a lot comes with that. And doing that, you have to promote yourself in and out the ring. And somewhere I think Canelo's team has lost that aspect, you know. And this is where we're at. So in closing, I hope that things change for the best. But like I say, if I'm a betting man, I don't see him fighting in 2020.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rodney. I think you're absolutely right on the money, brother. But we've got so much more to discuss, brother. The next item on the agenda, right? I don't know if you've seen this, Rodney, but Dillian White just did an interview on IFL TV, right, from Portugal. Apparently, he's in camp already. And they're shooting for, I think it's November 14th. Now, they did mention the 21st possibly, but I don't think they want to go head-to-head with Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia. You think?
Man, here's the thing. Well, let's just go back to...
Well, hold on, brother. Hold on. So now we're looking at Dillian Whyte, right? He's actually stated this, and I'm quoting him right now. Cassius, right, the gentleman who's conducting the interview on IFL TV, he says this: are you going to change anything for your camp, right? Are you going to change it? What are you going to do differently in this camp? Are you going to keep the same team together? And he said, why? Why would I change anything? I was winning that fight. I was, in fact, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to change a thing for my rematch with Povetkin. I'll fight him tomorrow. Does he not realize he got knocked out? And not just knocked out. KTFO'd, brother. You could have counted to 50.
Yeah.
Your thoughts? I mean, is it a wise? Am I missing something? Is this a wise or foolish mindset to you?
Here's the thing. I think his performance in the first part of the fight, now don't get me wrong, he did hurt Povetkin several times when he went to the body. Okay? And Povetkin looked like a shell of himself throughout the fight. But as we stated, at some point, White is going to let his guard down. Okay? And that's exactly what happened. He let his guard down, and if you watch the fight, man, Povetkin had been timing that punch for the longest. So I think he almost got it in the third round. It was a previous round where he was shooting for that same punch. But as I said, my problem with Dillian Whyte, he always seems to have been a front runner to me. He can't finish the job. And I think that if he takes that same type of mentality, look for to have the same results. Because as I said, if he could have pressed the gas on Povetkin and the earlier parts of the fight when he had him hurt, went to the body, I mean, he had Povetkin tentative. When Povetkin walked back to his corner, I mean, you could see the discomfort in him. But Dillian Whyte let him off the hook, and Povetkin I knew, that he just needs one punch. And sure enough, that's what he got. And I think, man, a guy like Povetkin, guys like that, man, they don't believe in adjustments, though, Joseph. I mean, not Povetkin, Dillian Whyte. So it's easy for him to say that I'm not going to change anything. That's a false sense of security, a false sense of confidence. Like, you know what? I had him beat, and I got to just do the same thing. No, you don't. No, you don't. You got to do something different.
Oh, very well said, brother. And for that, we give you the War Week round of applause. I tell you what, brother, and that's the thing that's most comical to me. And you know what? This happens sometimes with fighters, right? It would have probably been more productive for him to have seen the descent and have been maybe gotten his ass whooped over 12 rounds, right? Rather than doing great, knocking him down, his opponent twice in the previous round, and then all of a sudden waking up to everyone huddled around you saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He doesn't even know what happened. He doesn't remember getting caught.
Right.
I mean, he just remembers waking up and saying, "Well, why is everyone here? What's going on?" "Well, dude, you got knocked out." No.
Yeah.
And he seems to be in denial. Like, I'll give you two examples, Rodney, right? Andre Ward in fighting Sergey Kovalev in the first fight. Sergey Kovalev thought, you know what, I should have won that fight. I should have gotten the decision. So you know what, I'm not going to change a damn thing. And guess what happened in the second fight?
Yep.
Same thing with Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez. You know what? Gennady Golovkin's like an Abel Sanchez. They're like, you know what? We don't have to change a damn thing. We won that first fight. Look how the second fight played out. Do you mean to tell me, do you think that Alexander Povetkin is stupid enough not to try and make adjustments from how the fight was playing out until he landed that punch and felt that sense of urgency, or do you think he's going to go right after him immediately?
If I'm Dillian White and I'm his handlers and in his camp, to me, I would say, you know what? I think we need to work on our condition. Okay, we need to come in to be, now he did lose some weight before the fight, I believe, and he did come in. He didn't come in bad shape, but as I said, as the fight progressed, he showed how he was fatigued. And if you look at the knockout, have you ever had like working out with your dad, and he has you like picking up boxes and moving things around? When you get tired, you start to hunch down. He started to hunch down more and more. That's how he got caught. He wasn't bobbing and weaving. He
very
kept
good
hunching
observation.
down because and again, that's very obvious that he needs to be in tip-top condition, though. But as I said, I still believe Povetkin is not the fighter that he was. I don't think he's that fighter that he was 3 years ago. I just think that from a style matchup, and long as Dillian White fights in the style and the form and the fashion that he fights in, he's tailor-made for Povetkin. He's tailor-made because White is going to come out pretty strong, and he tends to fade. And as I said, he faded at the worst time, in this last bout. And you would be foolish to think or not pick Povetkin again. You would be foolish, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, especially if White is foolish enough not to change anything in camp. Like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, Rodney. It was shocking. I'm like, dude, you just got not just knocked out, not just beaten. You got KTFO'd in knockout of the year.
Man,
how can you not want to change? How can you not change anything? I mean, remember when we sized up this fight, right? The week before the fight, we talked about it, and we both picked Alexander Povetkin to win. And we said, well, the reason why is because Dillian White, his balls are too big for his own good. Rather than actually using lateral movement and trying to keep this guy at the end of his jab, he's going to elect the brawl. And that's when he's going to find himself in serious trouble. Because Povetkin has the shorter, more compact, sharp, direct... It's like, what's the quickest way from A to B? A straight line, right? Povetkin has the sharper technique. So if you're more athletic, right, and you're bigger, you're stronger, you're quicker, you're younger, use that to your advantage. Like, why wouldn't you? Keep this guy moving. Make him tired. Make him use every inch of that ring. But no, he wants to stand on the ropes, sit on the ropes, and try to trade with him. That is just stupid. And so, yeah, I'm with you, Rodney. Look for more of the same when this happens on November 14th. Thanks for playing, Dylan. So, hey, you know what? That's something, man. Since the pandemic, right, since the big event, since the show started, you're 5-0, man, on your big fight picks.
Man, how about that? How about that?
You got Joe Smith Jr., right? He knocked out Elider Alvarez just like you said he would. You easily got the Sean Porter one. You were successful in picking Alexander Povetkin. You were successful in picking Erislandy Lara. That was an easy one. And you were successful in picking Jose Ramirez. Wow.
Yep, that's right.
Nostradamus.
5-0, baby.
You guys need to start listening to Mr. Rodney Green. Man, you got a better record than Gogi, brother. So I tell you what, on that note, Rodney, we're going to go to the mailbag because we received a question from one of our listeners, a very good friend, Mr. Antonio Luna, listening from Long Beach, California. Thanks for tuning in, brother. We really appreciate it. Yep, Long Beach. So he says, Rodney, do you think eventually Terence Crawford will fight Sean Porter? Considering both are friends and both especially Crawford have stated their unwillingness to fight each other. Thanks for your insight, Rodney.
Here's the thing. You got two guys who respect each other and two guys who are not afraid of each other. Okay? Now, at Terence Crawford's career, you know, I would like to see him fight maybe a Errol Spence Jr. or even a Manny Pacquiao, or maybe try to get that top tier fight underneath his belt to where he can really try to ascend to superstar status of the sport. You know, him fighting Sean Porter, I think it'll be a tough fight. You know, whoever fights Sean Porter fights, he's always, you know, gives them a tough, stiff competition. But if I'm Terence Crawford handlers, I want a marquee fight that's on the verge of possibly pay-per-view somewhat. So you have Manny Pacquiao, you have Errol Spence. Depending if he decides to stay at 147, he may decide to go up to 154. Who knows? But I don't see Sean Porter and Terence Crawford. And then, too, you know, you have the promotional entities who have shown an unwillingness to work with each other when it really comes down to it. They always say, yeah, we're willing to make the big fight, we're willing to do this, but when it comes down to it, well, for whatever reason, they don't actually work together that often. So if I'm a betting man, I wouldn't hold my breath to see Porter and Crawford. And with that being said, neither one of them are afraid of each other. Let's make that crystal clear. Neither one isn't afraid of each other. But it's just the way things kind of work out and the logistics of, you know, promotional entities and all the things that's interwoven into the, you know, the boxing sport or boxing business will prevent that fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, the PBC fighters are all, well, the recipients of inflated purses. And, you know, no offense to, or no knock on them. Hey, man, if you could see that money, go out and get it. But that's something that Al Heyman does for each and every, like, do you remember a long time ago when PBC was just formed and we were doing the old radio show, Rodney? And Ronnie, our very dear friend, said, hey, man, if you sign with Al Heyman, you're going to make more money than you ever thought you could have in the sport of boxing. That's a guarantee. And, yeah, his fighters, the ones who produce, they receive terribly inflated purses. Like it was reported last week from Bomac, Terence Crawford's manager, right? Trainer. Brian McIntyre. He stated that the actual number that was sent over to Bob Arum for a Crawford fight was $10 million. When has Keith Thurman ever made $10 million?
Yeah.
He didn't even make that to fight Manny Pacquiao.
Manny Pacquiao, exactly.
So you can argue that, okay, if it's that inflated, if it's that absurd, it's not a serious offer. And that's what Bob basically just chucked it out the window, saying, yeah, that's not a serious offer. Like, I don't even see why they even sent that over.
See, here's the thing, and I know you're going to have some fans and some listeners say, well, that's not true because you had Fury and Wilder who fought, and they are with, you know, different, you know, entities or promotional companies. But see, the thing is that the demand was so high, okay? Mm-hmm. And again, we're dealing with heavyweights now. We're dealing with heavyweights, and the demand was there. For whatever reason, you know, we had a huge part of boxing fans thought and believed that Wilder was going to knock him out and was going to win, and then you had the other half that thought Fury was going to just box his socks off and win. So you had that where it all came together, where it was able to come up with the right number and make those guys fight. You know.
Well, and also, Rodney, I'm sorry to interject, but also when you look at the business side of it, Al Heyman and Fox, they were responsible for paying Deontay Wilder. ESPN and Bob Arum were responsible for paying Tyson Fury, and that's the way they configured
Good point.
Good point. I don't see. Now, obviously, if Crawford if Sean Porter or Keith Thurman or anyone from PBC, and they're free agents, right? If you want to fight on that ESPN platform and are holding Top Rank as the sole promoter for the event, then you're going to have to work with them. You can't just throw an outrageous number like that. That would be, to me, that would be the only way Sean Porter versus Terence Crawford ever gets done, is if Al Heyman is willing to make the guarantee himself. This is how much you're going to make, Sean Porter, right? That's the only way I think it gets made. Otherwise, their purses are way too inflated, and they've grown accustomed to receiving these outrageous numbers, right? That's not very realistic. And so, but the fact that they're actually friends, right, is actually a bonus, Rodney. I don't know about you. If we were prize fighters, I'd want you to make some mad coin, man. If I were the A side, right? If I were Terence Crawford, you don't think I'd want my friends, man, to actually make money with me?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I can definitely see that scenario and possibility. But as I said, when you're dealing with PBC fighters, okay, Al Heyman has so much say-so on the outcome of who they fight or when they fight, okay? Now, again, I like Sean Porter. I really do. I like Sean Porter, and I would, if anybody deserves to continue to get a decent payday, I have no problem with Sean Porter continue to get a decent payday. But in this situation right here, I truly believe that if they would make the fight, we have to understand that Crawford is truly the A side, okay? He should get the lion's share of the purse, of the money, and if they can come to terms with that and it all works out, then okay, fine. But at the same time, like I say, I think Terence Crawford has the ability to ascend to a higher level, so he has to keep that in mind as well, too. Now, an ugly fight or ugly win against Sean Porter, I don't know if that's going to, get him to the level that he aspires to be. But nevertheless, though, it wouldn't be the worst fight in the world. But like I say, if it does happen, I think they really want to make it come to fruition. Crawford needs to be the A side and receive the share of the money, and Porter just needs to say, let's just fight and get it on. I'm willing to accept maybe lower than what I, would like, but I want to fight you so bad and prove to the world that I'm the best 147 pounds. And if he's willing to take that disposition, then we have a fight. Yeah.
When are we ever going to see a PBC fighter, though, fight for glory and not numbers? It doesn't happen, brother. And once again, these guys have been conditioned to think this way. And we're going to talk about this in just a bit, but if you saw the Charlo's press conference online, right? I sat through both days, 2 hours of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all they talked about was money and how smart they are. And I'm like, we'll get into that in just a bit. But like I said, the point is, though, guys, that the fact that they're friends is actually a bonus and actually is encouraging that they will get it on. It's not a deterrent. It's like fans are thinking okay, well, it's a fight. You don't want to fight your friend. Well, your business partners. You don't want your friend to make a ton of money in one night? Really?
Right.
See, it's like look at Shannon Briggs, for instance, right? How did his campaign and acting like an asshole, pardon my French, how did that turn out? Did he end up landing that big fight with Vladimir Klitschko? Let's go, champ.
Nope.
Let's go, champ. Showing up at lunch, showing up while he's at the beach, hunting him down, acting like an ass to anyone who would bother listening. How did that work out for him? He did the same thing with David Hay in Britain. How did that work for him? Did he ever get the David Haye fight?
Yeah, he hasn't gotten any fight to be. If I'm not,
that's what I'm saying. Look, guys, these guys are business partners. You can't act like a total ass and then expect this guy to give you millions or the opportunity to make millions. It doesn't work that way. Someone should have, Rodney, you should have taught Shannon Briggs a little something about the business. So Antonio, I guess what we're saying is the fact that they're friends is actually a good thing and a very encouraging thing that he would get the fight. Look, if there is no title fight and if he doesn't have to fight his mandatory WBO, mandatory right away, I actually think that Sean will get the fight, right? I actually think he will get the fight. I think Errol Spence, I think his map is already laid out, right? I think he wants to fight Danny Garcia. I think he wants to fight Manny Pacquiao next. And then if he's successful in those two fights, then he'll look at unifying the weight division with Terence Crawford. But unless Keith Thurman brings his number way down, I think you're more likely to see Sean Porter step in the ring with him because of that reason, because they're friends, because they're going to be great business partners, and because it's a great style matchup. So anyway, thanks for the question, Antonio. God bless you, brother. Hope you're doing well. And thanks for the question for Rodney. Let's go to the next topic. Oh man, it's already at the 43 mark, man. Are we going to have time for all these topics, brother? Because we still have to. Time. So let me give you some topics, and you can pick which one you want to talk about next. All right. Frank Warren open to Dubois versus Usyk if AJ vacates the WBO Heavyweight title. Right? Is Triple D ready for the huge step up in class, or would this be a terrible decision by Frank Warren and company? Okay, that, and then Jose Ramirez. After struggling with Victor Postal, is he ready for Josh Taylor? And next topic, Charlo Twins kick off Showtime pay-per-view promotional efforts. Are both fighters ready for the PPV platform? And then last but not least, Gervonta Davis sparring with Luis Arias. Is that a smart move, right? Preparing for Leo Santa Cruz at 130 pounds, sparring with a middleweight. So which one would you like to talk about next, man?
Let's talk about the Charlos, okay? Because, again, they're fighting on a pay-per-view platform, and again, if it does well, it helps boxing. You know, I mean, and I hope that they can have some success. But see, this is where I think they're going about things wrong. You're trying to mimic something that I think Floyd mastered, which was being the villain, talking about money, talking about, talking about his lifestyle and, that's Floyd. Floyd has already been there and done that. He's mastered that. The public gravitated towards it. And then, too, see, Floyd he had the ability to do that because he had proven himself in the ring. Okay? He had, before he started doing that, he had became an all-time great before he took on that character. Okay? That was an extension of who Floyd was. So I think the Charlos, man, I wish them well. And they really are good guys, man. I've had a chance to interview and talk to them. I just think they're going about it the wrong way to promote the fight. I don't like the fact that they went at each other, as brothers, said some very, unbelievable things as far as degrading one another that I thought that they could have handled better. So, as I said, man, once again, you're putting them on this platform, and it's going to be sink or swim. And if them numbers don't come back, all it's going to do is just continue to be a black eye for the sport. And I hope it does well. I'm going to order the fight, me personally, but I can't speak for the rest of the boxing fans. And we'll know once the numbers come out the following day from their pay-per-view performances. That's
right. And guys, we're going to do everything we possibly can to help promote this event. They've just kicked off their promotional efforts. Now it's our turn. We have to crank up and start promoting this event. This is up to us now, right? But what I want to question I want to pose to you though, Rodney. They're in dual main events is how they're billing this. During the conference call, right? They stated that they're going to have 2 fights, and then the first main event, which is going to be Jermall Charlo versus Sergey Derevyanchenko. And then they're going to have take a brief intermission, then 2 more fights, and then they're going to have the final main event of the evening, which is going to be Jermall Charlo versus Jason Rosario, because it's a unification bout at 54. That's why it was determined that it was going to be the final, the showstopper, basically. Do you remember the Marquez brothers, Rafael Marquez and Juan Manuel Marquez? Okay, they said they did not ever want to fight on the same card because they couldn't handle it. Like, whoever fought first, right? If Rafa fought before Juan Manuel couldn't watch it. He was just a ball of nerves, and he said, you know what? I don't like this. We're never going to compete on the same card ever again. And they didn't for the remainder of their careers. What I want to ask you, Rodney, how is Jermell, because you've seen how emotional they get at each brother's fights, right? Yeah. When they're in the crowd. Is Jermell going to be able to stay focused if his brother gets beaten up by Sergey Derevyanchenko or possibly stopped?
I wouldn't like to be. I wouldn't want to be in that position. You know, Derevyanchenko is going to give. I mean, man, that can possibly be a.
Like, think about this. Think about this, Rodney. Think about this. Now, you've seen how emotional they are, especially Jermell, right?
Oh man.
Especially the slightly younger brother, right? You've seen how emotional he gets. Is he going to be able to keep it together if his brother gets knocked out?
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point. Well, I mean, to be honest, to be honest, you know, I've seen the Charlo brothers become unhinged in the past, I would say, year and a half. I mean, just from some press conferences, just, you know, some of the altercations they maybe had in the hallway. They extend a lot of energy with a lot of, you know, barking, okay, going back and forth. And as I said, you know, that can be an issue. And I just wouldn't want to be in a position where, for one, the weight of the pay-per-view event is really going to be on their shoulders. And that's a lot of pressure within itself. But, man, those are 2 tough fights, though, Joseph. I mean, people are discounting Rosario.
You know what, brother? Yeah, you know, honestly, Rodney, I think there is a definite possibility that both Charlo brothers could lose their first stint on pay-per-view.
Man, Rosario is, man, he is.
How does that guy make 154 pounds? Like, this is a former middleweight, right?
Yeah.
This guy came down. This is, you know, to be honest with you, both guys are huge super welterweights. They're huge junior middleweights. If both these guys actually if we still had same-day weigh-ins, both men would probably be competing as super middleweights right now.
Here's the thing we need to look at, Joseph. As the pay-per-view gets closer, and let's just say now the numbers are, you know, starting to kind of roll in, and you're starting to get an expectation or, you know, or a certain type of buzz for the fight that, you know, can kind of project maybe the PPV numbers. Let's say that's their focus on continuing to try to sell the fight to get the numbers up, and they don't give the attention to the detail to their opponents. Man, I could very easily see both of them losing on pay-per-view. And if that happens, guess what? They're one and done, bro. They're one and done as far as being able to hold that slot again.
Oh, because when you think about it, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir, as you were.
It's a lot of pressure on them because, man, you're under the pay-per-view lights and you have a lot of responsibility. And as I said, man, guys like Floyd don't come around once in a blue moon to where he can do that. He can handle the pressure. He can promote. He can be the villain. He can get people out there. He can get asses in the seats. They can hate him so much where they'll pay to see him lose. You know, they would love to just see him lose. They're willing to pay. I don't know if the Charlos have that type of appeal. And as I said, they still have to prepare for probably the toughest fight of their professional careers, in my opinion.
I wholeheartedly agree, my friend. Very well said. When you think about this, how did Jermall Charlo get that title? Did he beat a champion? Did he dethrone a title holder? No.
Nope.
He got it by beating for the vacant, right, title, Jorge Sebastian Hyland. Then he beat Hugo Centeno Jr. The toughest opposition he's had up to this point, right, at middleweight was Matt Korobov, who's an older Russian fighter. This is a guy who has a deep amateur pedigree, but not as deep as Sergey Derevyanchenko's. I don't know if they realize that this guy is an elite-level talent, deep amateur pedigree, a guy who's taken both Gennady Golovkin and Daniel Jacobs, two of the hardest punchers in the division, in boxing, period, pound for pound. Two guys who cracked the hardest in the division, and he made it to the final bell. This is a guy, right?
Good point.
This is a guy who is going to be in his third title fight in just 16 fights, professional fights. And the reason why DiBella was able to move him along this quickly is for the same reason why they were able to move Lomachenko, Beterbiev, Usyk, Gvozdyk at the same pace, at a very quick, accelerated pace, because of that deep amateur pedigree. Now, the Charlos have a nice amateur pedigree, right? They've been fighting ever since they were kids. But they don't have the deep world-class pedigree like Sergey Derevyanchenko, fighting at the world-class level for decades. This is a guy this is going to be a 16th pro bout, right? And he's already taken on and taken the distance Daniel Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin.
Yeah.
Yet, I'll tell you this, though, just from speaking with our good friend Ronnie Shields, and he's going to be on the show on Thursday, so call in if you can, brother, so you can say hi to our very dear friend Ronnie. He's making time out for us this Thursday night. But he's guaranteeing a Charlo knockout. He insists that Jermall Charlo is going to do something that Gennady Golovkin and Daniel Jacobs couldn't do before him. He's going to knock him out.
Wow.
He sees something in that fight, in his fight. He sees something that he says, my man will be able to exploit, and you guys are going to be in shock. You guys are going to see it. He's going to knock him out. Your final thoughts on this, man, before we actually start talking about maybe another topic or two. We'll try to squeeze one more in.
Let them fight, and let's just support this pay-per-view event. That's my final thoughts. I can't emphasize enough. Support the event, buy the fight, and it would only enhance and help boxing if we have some decent PPV numbers on this event.
Indeed. Very well said, brother. And we'll do everything we can to try and encourage everyone to buy this one. Guys, we need to start financially supporting our beloved boxing, or else it will cease to exist. Do you remember I said the same thing about HBO back in the day? When Game of Thrones and even Late Night with Bill Maher was kicking boxing's ass in terms of numbers, ratings?
Yeah.
Do you remember I said, okay, well, guys, if this keeps up, HBO is going to be out of the boxing business, right?
Yeah.
Guess what happened?
You called it.
Okay, guys, well, I see the same thing on the rise, and if numbers do not improve, do you really think any of these investors, benefactors, are in the business of losing money? No.
Yeah.
So we need to start supporting this. And it's funny, UFC fans, they look forward to it. UFC fans, they look forward to, they already plan on having that extra amount on their cable bill every week, every month. Why don't boxing fans?
Good point.
So I'll say this, Rodney. We're almost at the hour mark, brother, and we still have a lot to discuss very quickly, and we won't go into it, man. We won't go into it, right? Not as in depth as we wish we could, but very quickly. Do you think Frank Warren is insane to throw his blue chip, black diamond prospect in with Alexander Usyk if AJ vacates the WBO Heavyweight title? Because the rankings just came out for this month. It's September 1st. And so ranked number 1 is Alexander Usyk. He's his mandatory challenger. But ranked number 2 is Triple D, Daniel Dynamite Dubois. If you're Frank Warren, if given the opportunity, do you roll the dice and just say, let's go get him, young man? Because I'm sorry, as much as I like Joe Joyce, that is not going to prepare him for what he's going to see against Alexander Usyk.
Yeah, I think they're trying to take the training wheels off of him too fast, to be honest. And like I say, when you have a talented fighter like that, especially a heavyweight who has a chance to be a superstar has a very high ceiling. I think they're rushing him a little bit too fast. Now, unless Frank Warren and his handlers see something that I don't see, or they have some type of insight that we're missing, I think that the kid can find himself in a tough fight, going to deep waters, and end up losing, get knocked out, and losing his confidence. Kind of like the remember David Price? Was it David Price?
Oh boy, yep, he was the darling of the Olympics. Yep. Yep.
And I can see that happening. So I hope that maybe he was just blowing smoke and just kind of promoting, and but hey, man, that's be very careful though if you put him in the ring at this stage of his career, because he may not come out the same.
Very well said. You've got to be careful. This is a black diamond prospect. This is a guy who most people circle and say, yeah, this guy's going to be world champion someday. Do not try to maneuver him too quickly to that point. Okay, you look at Top Rank. Look at the way they handle their fighters, right? A gentleman who had his first title opportunity, right, from Top Rank. Who's the gentleman who just fought Terence Crawford last? His name eludes me. I'm so sorry, man. Ugas Kavalasquez. He's going to be fighting next weekend, right?
Yeah.
Ugas Kavalasquez. Right. Look how long he's been in their stable. Like, they took their time with that guy, because they knew, they're like, okay, well, Terence Crawford, if we put him in the ring with him too soon, yeah, man, he might go. And this is a guy who's a former two-time Olympian, right? Ugas Kavalasquez. And you're going to see, guys, how good this gentleman is when he's not in the ring with Terence Crawford next week. He's going to be fighting Mikhail Zuski. And more than likely, he's going to tear Mikhail Zuski in half. This guy's got power in both hands. But once again, you take your time with your prospects. You invest your time, you invest your money, because you know they could be the future of boxing. Daniel Dubois seems to be the goods. Do not do what Main Events did with Fernando Vargas. Do you remember Fernando Vargas, Rodney?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What happened with his career after he got knocked out by Felix Trinidad?
Man, he was never the same. He was a shell of himself. He bit off more than he can chew. He had the heart, but he didn't have the brain. And, man, his career got derailed quick after he fought Trinidad. He was never the same. And I just only hope that, man, they don't put Dubois in that position, because, man, he can find himself in the life or death struggle. And remember, these are heavyweights, though. So, as I said, it's easy for him to not be at that top tier and really ready for that type of stage and just be off his game just a little bit and get himself hurt. And we would hate to see that, to where we miss out on a promising career because they put him in with an opponent that had so much more experience and was just too much that he bargained for. So I hope they do the right thing, though. We really do.
Well, at least we'll be able to find out after he fights Joe Joyce whether or not he can take a punch. Because it's funny, I'll never forget this, Don Chargan, the late, great Don Chargan telling us this story, right, on the radio. He said, well, it's funny, never get too high on a prospect until you see how well he takes a punch. And he told us the story of Victor Ortiz. Oh, Oscar and Eric Gomez and Richard Schaefer, they were so excited. They thought they had found the next Hispanic golden boy. $1 million smile, heavy hands, good amateur background. Oh, this guy's so charismatic. He could be a movie star. And Don asked Oscar, well, can he take a punch? How's his chin? And Oscar was glowing. Said, oh, we have no idea. He's that good. And Don was like, and who's he fighting tonight? Oh, just some cat, man, who's a title holder he's the current WBO title holder at 140. He's from Argentina. His name is Marcos Maidana. And Don was like, I've seen Marcos Maidana fight. He's very heavy-handed. Are you sure you guys are doing the right thing? And Oscar was all, relax. This guy's a stud. You'll see, Don. So first round comes around, right? And Victor Ortiz catches him with a right hook, straight left hand down the middle, and floors Marcos Maidana within 2 minutes, right? Well, what happens, Marcos Maidana says, wow, we're in a fight. He immediately gets up and throws a straight right hand down the middle that floors Victor Ortiz immediately. Don looks over at Oscar and says, never get too high on a prospect until you see how he can take a punch. And Victor Ortiz was never the same after that evening.
He was never the same.
So I tell you what, baby steps, guys. This is a business, and these are investments. And, yeah, that's why it's so important for matchmakers, promoters, to always do the right thing, always take their time in cultivating and nurturing prospects, right? Tell you what, Rodney, very quickly, brother, we're already over time, but we need to get your thoughts and your picks for this weekend's fights. On ESPN Plus, we've got Jamil Herring, former Olympian, former Marine, versus Jonathan Oquendo of Puerto Rico, defending his WBO Super Featherweight Championship.
I'm going to go with Herring. I like what I saw in him the past couple of fights. I feel like he's ascending, and I'm going to go with Herring by decision. Excellent.
I concur, my friend. Now, on Sunday, we've got rare Sunday night boxing action on Fox. Guys, this fight should not be taking place for the vacant WBA Welterweight Championship, right? This is Jordanius Ugas versus, do you remember that fighter in on a PBC card on the same one where Caleb Plant, right?
Right.
Was fighting on PBC, and on the undercard it was out in Nashville, I think. And he was getting outboxed, right? This guy Ramos. I think his name is Albert Ramos. Hold on just one moment. Let me pull up his info. Yeah, his name is Abel Ramos. My apologies. He was fighting a prospect, right, for the opportunity to face Jordanius Ugas. He was fighting Bryant Perella at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. He was losing every minute of every round, and then he lands in the final 20 seconds of the fight. He lands a straight right hand that knocks him down. Bryant Perella gets up, right, and is winning the fight on all the judges' scorecards. I mean, 9-0, basically pitching a shutout. And then gets floored again. Gets up with 3 seconds remaining on the clock, and referee Jack Reese, with 1 second left on the clock, Jack Reese calls a halt to the bout, rewarding Abel Ramos with the victory. Guys, go check it out on YouTube if you forgot about it. But that's who your Danius Ugas is fighting for a version of the WBA title at 147 pounds.
Yeah. Well.
Oh my gosh. So I think I know what you're going to say, brother. Who's going to win this fight?
Yeah, I think you know too.
I look forward to you improving your record to 7-0, man, when we talk next week.
Absolutely.
But guys, tune into All the Boxing. It's going to be an excellent 2 fight cards on ESPN Plus, and then the following evening on Fox. But so, do you want to make it official, or can we just assume that you think your Danius Ugas is going to own this kid?
Ugas will own the kid. Let's make it official. Ugas will own it.
Right on, brother. So, guys, take it to the bank. Mr. Rodney Green likes Jamil Herring and likes your Danius Ugas for the wins. Take it to the bank, guys. He's perfect so far since we reconvened on the radio. So, your parting shots and final thoughts for our listening audience, Rodney.
Just as I can't emphasize enough to support these events. As I said, we have a lot of boxing that's about to start, getting back into regularity with the restrictions of COVID being lifted. And as I said, I just hope that, we can support the sport, and 2021 will be here before you know it. I would like for us to get some momentum, in the last quarter of the year and really build up to some exciting fights in 2021. So, like I say, another weekend of boxing. Let's support, and we'll see you next week.
Indeed, guys. He's Rodney Green. Thank you so much for sharing the air with us this evening, brother. God bless you, man, and we appreciate all of your insight. But that's going to just about do it, guys. We've been over time again. Thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to visit FightSaga.com, our official sponsor of Warweek Radio. Have a great Tuesday evening, everybody.